Gavin.
Hey, Louie.
How are you doing, girly?
I'm doing good. It's getting colder.
Are you feeling like the festive season?
It's dark at like 4 p.m.
And... have you tasted like some turkey spice things, some pumpkin, that?
Some turkey spice milk and
pumpkin spice. You know what I saw in the store the other day?
Is it going to be a turkey spice milk?
No.
I hope not.
It was oat nog.
Oh.
And Derek was, and I said, no. You put that right back. And a woman watching us was laughing. And I said, ma'am.
I
said, Gavin, please.
Yeah, newsflash. I was that woman.
Gavin, please stop following me to the store.
Me and full drags.
Yeah.
That's how I spend my weeknights.
Just at the Lincoln Market.
At the Lincoln Market. And will someone clock me?
No. Unclockable. Unclockable.
I just recently had my first oat milk experience because I had not had oat milk before. And let me tell you, not a fan. It has the consistency of semen, which is not to say...
That took a turn.
Yeah, which is not to say that's the worst consistency. But when it tastes like oat milk, when it tastes like weird water...
Yeah, it's watery. I'm not mad at it, but I'm not going to pay the extra for it.
No, and I think that's where I'm drawing the line.
I also like milk a lot. I like regular milk.
Welcome back to Milk Chat, by the way.
So now, in 2% versus whole, what is the story there?
Oh, you always choose the whole, Louie. Everybody knows.
Oh my God.
This is the R-rated episode.
Wow, it really is. This is very in theme with our subject today. But hi, this is the Mixed Reviews.
We are a film podcast where we take a film subject, such as an actor, director, or mini genre, and we give you a fun little history, and then we talk about the stuff we like and then the stuff that we don't like.
And
so
this
much.
episode, we're sponsored by the Milk Agency, the milk lobby. Yes. Big Milk. Brought to you by Big Milk. And not the drag queen.
I was just going to say that was my stripper name.
Big Milk. Wow. She does the body good.
Exactly.
There you go. Thank you. But yes, hi everyone. Welcome back. Thank you for choosing to listen to the Mixed Reviews this week.
That's true. You could have your pick of any film podcast and you keep flying with us.
Hello. Let's go back. Last episode.
Yes.
We talked about Angelina Jolie. Can I tell you that I got some very hot goss? A potential, this is very like, we gotta bleep it. We gotta like,
I do have that power. I am an editor.
A friend of mine said he knows a who like works in the therapist's office.
Oh, this is very Spaceballs. You're my uncle's father's brother's.
Very that. It's very LA. It's very, I know a girl who knows a girl who looks like a boyfriend who looks like my girlfriend.
Yeah.
That's The Killers. I'm not going to get into the saucy details, but let's just say that the kids are in therapy and doing their best. And doing their best.
Yeah.
Just like the rest of us.
That happens.
When your parents are the hottest people on the planet, and the most famous people on the planet, things are
and they go through a pretty non-amicable divorce.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
I could see that.
Things are messy.
Yeah.
But you know what? Life is messy. Okay. And so is this room.
Oh, you bastard! You've been holding on to that one.
I just love any chance to drag you guys.
It's just got a lot of stuff. It's not messy. Okay, those books, those are an issue.
But okay, we talked about Angelina Jolie last episode. We asked you guys to go vote for your favorite Miss Jolie performance, and the results are in. Tied in last place, which is kind of funny to me, it makes me laugh, was Lara Croft and Changeling. I feel like there's a winner between those two.
No, two sides of the same coin.
Right. Those are both the same.
She's just raiding tombs trying to get her kid back.
Yeah. And it's hard. In this economy. And then in second place was my pick, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, with 17%. An undeniably hot movie. And in first place, far and away, your pick, Gavin, Girl Interrupted, 61%.
Shocking. And not, I don't know. I was surprised by that win, I'll be honest, because I genuinely assumed Mr. and Mrs. Smith would win. I feel like that's a crowd-pleasing answer. They're both very good in it. She's great. She's giving a fantastic performance. So I was like, but she did win her Academy Award for Girl Interrupted, so I guess I should just take the win and be happy with it.
Girl Interrupted is one of those rare movies that not only is like unanimously critically loved, but like it broke through the mainstream. Like this is a movie that like that was the one of the years there were people like, oh yeah, when they were watching the Oscars, oh I have seen that one.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you know, one of the rare, and so people were like, Angelina did fucking really work that shit. She was great.
And just seriously, and I know we said it in the episode, but like an amazing cast.
Yes.
Yeah, it
all
cannot
around,
be said enough.
All around. But that was last episode. So we do have a little bit of business. Dear listeners, Gavin and I have made the executive decision that this will be our last episode.
Ever.
Period. No. This will be our last episode of the year. We are going to take a very well-deserved break, take December off, go see the kids.
Absolutely.
The kids,
you know, they've been splitting time between us.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we really think it's important to be a united family.
Yes,
And just
yes.
spend the day,
Correct.
the holidays with them.
Chels and Sam and all of our other guests.
Dan and Connor,
Yeah.
Manish,
Yeah.
all our babies.
Yeah, they really miss us. So no, yes, this will be our last episode of the year. So a very early happy holidays and all that. Happy New Year. But we will be back and see you in January for our end of the year wrap up review.
Yeah, our year in review of 2021.
Yes.
It's been such a weird fucking year for movies.
I know. I just can't wait to talk about Godzilla vs. King Kong for an hour and a half.
These episodes are rarely an hour and a half. It's a full 2 hours or nothing.
I'm giving you 30 minutes for whatever you want to talk about, Gavin. But I am going to do my best to get out some new little merch for the holiday season. Supply chain, what's that? I don't know. But hopefully by the time you're hearing this, we will have a new shirt out that you can, you know, stuff into some stockings.
Absolutely. And if you do want to go and order some of our merch to put into people's stockings,
yes,
you can always find our stuff on Redbubble. Just search the Mixed Reviews. We have shirts and totes and
fun stuff.
Coffee cups
and stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, I think hats. Maybe there's some hats.
I don't know.
I don't want to promise you anything that's not there.
Yeah.
So just stuff.
If you want other stuff, there are buttons I can press to make the stuff exist. I just turned it all. I was like, people don't want mouse pads and dresses. There's literally an option to make dresses with our name on it. I was like, too much. But anyway, I think that's all the old business.
Absolutely. Sorry that there will be no seasonally appropriate, but like, listen, what did you want us to do? Snowmen on film? Like
angels on film. Oh, no. I know. Gavin's like,
maybe next year.
Where are the devils on film?
Yeah. Don't think I'm not going to pitch that next October.
And now our Satan episode. Okay, let's wrap that up and move right along. Gavin, tell the children, what are we here to talk about today?
Today we're here to talk about the 90s auteur turned cinema master. That sounds good. Yeah, I think so. The cerebral but very visual Paul Thomas Anderson.
Yeah, I'm going to be very honest, okay? I hadn't seen a lot of his movies because I'm not smart. And I was like, oh,
Baby, we've been trying to hide that from you.
Okay, I'm looking at the man in the mirror. I'm trying to make a change. No, I think both you and I, when we're watching for this episode, we're like, oh, God.
Yeah.
It was a slog.
I know,
and I don't want to say slog because it's
like they were both like,
it's not slog as in bad, but it's like these are not easy. Typically, I'll watch maybe 2 films a day, and they're like easy breezy gals to get through. None of his movies are easy breezy gals.
Exactly.
They're long. They're heady.
Yeah. They're emotionally heavy.
Yes.
Their characters are oftentimes miserable. Which really doesn't. You know, when you're trying to keep the vibe up, it kind of brings the mood down.
It's, just like really, I literally I would go to youtube.com and then have to watch like some internet video game playing. Like, I was like, I cannot watch another movie. Like
I was telling Louis before the show began, I watched an entire season of Dracula because I needed something in between. I was like, give me something stupid.
Thank God Big Mouth has a new season out because Whoo! What an episode! What's some really heavy movies? Thankfully, he only has 8 movies.
Yes.
I think 9 now out with Licorice Pizza. So it wasn't he doesn't have a big body of work, but each movie is like 2.5, 3 hours long.
And listen, we all know, he started strong with Event Horizon, and the Resident Evil movies were a little bit of a flop.
Yeah.
But then Alien vs. Predator, that's Paul S. W. Anderson. Did I watch the wrong movies?
Gavin. I hate when you do that.
I've also been sitting on that joke. Talk about canned jokes. But yeah, no, this was tougher. And like, hey, listen, we know we're not, we don't always do filmmakers on the show because you can, like, that's every other film podcast.
You're right.
But it is fun for us to like dive into someone like this to do he like maybe is one of 3 white male filmmakers we've ever done.
Correct.
And so it's kind of fun to like delve into his psyche and what's going on with him.
It's funny you just mentioned that because literally as I was watching all these, I was like, this is maybe the straightest episode.
Yeah.
Like research and like watching I've done. And I was...
Yeah, because even when we did Richard Linklater, there's something just a little queer there.
Yeah. I mean, like, I was talking to good friend of the pod and former guest host Samantha Stallard, and she was like, I swear to God, every fucking guy I go on a date with wants to talk to me about what PTA movie like is his favorite movie and changed his life. And I was listening to like interviews with him on other podcasts, and it's literally just like these film bros being like, man, like Daniel Day, that's like the greatest, like,
which is so funny because I do think there is, well, just to complete my original thought, like hopefully we provide a slightly different perspective for you going in.
Yes.
So it's not just the same boring white straight people telling you about a filmmaker, and maybe we'll provide a different angle or something that you haven't thought about before. But the reverse of that is, I think Paul Thomas Anderson, who is like kind of, I mean, he really is a film bro, but I don't feel like he's a film bro. Like, I feel like he gets pigeonholed into that because of those situations where he's often getting interviewed by these film fans. But at the same time, he's like very non-judgmental, very open-minded. He grew up in like a very relaxed, like entertainment industry focused family in California. So it's his vibe never comes off as like super pretentious. Like he seems very laxed and relaxed. Like he's not a Tarantino.
He's not going to talk shit about the Marvel movies.
Right.
Exactly. What I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, he's literally like, my kids love the Marvel movies.
Yeah.
They're great. Like he's not like so stick up his ass about like, popular shit.
One of the reasons he decided to drop out of film school was because, his first day in NYU, he went to 2 classes in NYU. I'm getting out of myself, but his first day there, the teacher was like,
if you're here to write Terminator 2, just leave now. And I thought, well, that's terrible. Could be a kid in the corner there that wants to write Terminator 2. That's his vision. That's his movie. That's what he likes. Let him do it,
Not Terminator the first one, as you said on the Cinema Gals podcast.
Okay, please, everyone, our listeners, please go over to Cinema Gals podcast. I do an excellent job remembering all the names of the Terminator movies.
Absolutely. But, so that's, I think that...
I said Terminator the first one.
Terminator the first one. It stuck with me to this day. I still think about it. That's this sort of interesting thing. And this is not me, like, defending a straight white man. Whatever. He's rich, and so, like, he's good. He's fine. But, I just think it's interesting that there's a lot of shitty film bro muck you sort of have to get through when you delve into the world of PTA. And I don't think that it really has that much to do with him as a person, but you sort of have to do the work to get there. You have to row out to the island where his like chillness is.
It's the same way I feel about like when I'm like, oh, I love pop punk music so much, and then I go to a show and I remember all the fans of that music. I'm like, this is the worst. Okay, let's get into the rewind. So Paul Thomas Anderson was born June 26th in 1970. He is 51 years old.
So young.
A young child. And I will say, he's kind of a cutie.
Yeah. No, he is. It's so funny, though. I did see somebody say in a very short period of time, he went from film bro twink
Yes.
to
Yes.
drunk dad. Like,
Absolutely.
physically.
If the pictures of him on the set of Boogie Nights, I'm like, this looks like Moby,
Yeah.
but like, or like just strong Moby vibes is all like that what came to me. And I was like, it's kind of scuzzy, just like very Gen X, like, I don't know, bucket hats.
Yes. Oh, bucket hats. Perfect.
Bucket hats. Bucket hat couture. Okay. He was born in Studio City, Los Angeles. His parents were Edwina and Ernie, which I think is so cute. Ernie was kind of like a famous voice actor. He was the voice of ABC. He was doing commercials and he was the narrator stuff for like The Love Boat.
The announcer for Carol Burnett.
Yeah.
But prior to all of that, and I don't...
Please,
yes.
Gavin, this is very you.
I don't want to skip over it because it's pretty amazing. Back in Ohio, for about 3 years, he had a very famous Friday night TV show where he presented movies under the moniker Ghoulardi.
Hey, listen, gang. What do you think of the movie so far, huh? Hey, really bad.
And Ghoulardi was, you know, in a way, people always talk about how Elvira sort of stole Vampiristes, but I feel like she's a combination of Ghoulardi and Elvira, because Ghoulardi wasn't like a mad scientist or anything. He just had like a goatee and like a blacked out eye, but then he was like kind of a beatnik, kind of a hippie. He'd, you know, tell people like, don't rat out your friends and make fun of the movies in between. And so Paul Thomas Anderson later in life would name his film company Ghoulardi.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, you'll see it on a bunch of his movies.
Also, gotta say, there's a lot of scholarship and journalism about Paul Thomas Anderson and all his movies. So feel like literally Google his name and you'll find so much stuff. He's not press shy.
Yeah, that's I was saying that to Louis before we even began. Like, this is not a man that refuses an interview.
Yeah.
He is willing to do an interview because I think he likes talking to people. And I think it's very clear from his movies that he likes digging deeper into people. And part of that is, you know, going and talking to them, even if it's answering the same 9 billion questions.
Right. But I think also that comes from growing up in Hollywood. Like, he knows how the game is played, you know, he understands it and is also just like most of the times those journalists are just doing their jobs.
Yeah.
Like,
I saw an interview with him where he mentioned he's like, getting into the business wasn't ever like a foreign thing to, he's like, I grew up there.
Yeah, I mean, certainly I had a leg up in that I was born and bred in Los Angeles, where, you know, to get a job on a film set is, you know, just as easy as, you know, I don't know, you know, it surrounds you.
He has said that he always wanted to be a filmmaker. He really had no other plan, could not imagine doing anything else. And what's funny, I at the beginning was like, ugh, good, some nepotism case, but that really isn't the case.
No.
He doesn't talk a lot about his relationship with his mom. He just says that he didn't have a really good relationship with her. And there's a really good oral history in Grantland about Boogie Nights where the actress, and she plays the mother of Dirk Diggler. And there's a famous scene where the mother is telling him, you're never going to be anything. You're never, like, the actress asked Paul, like, is this supposed to be your mom? And he didn't say anything, but he kind of got misty-eyed. And so she kind of, like, let it go. Is it Joanna Gleason?
Joanna Gleason. And it's funny, you got that just as I looked it up. But it's funny, too, because the story I have heard, everything is the same, except for that story ends with her placing her hand on his shoulder and saying, you don't have to forgive her.
Yeah. So reading between the lines, maybe mom wasn't as supportive of perhaps pursuing a career in Hollywood, but his dad really was. And it seems like his dad was very like loosey-goosey, fun guy.
Hung out with a lot of the famous people of that era. Like I said, mentioned the Carol Burnett, like would hang out with the cast members of that, including Tim Conway. There's a very funny story he tells of his father and Tim Conway, like purposely trying to get pulled over after getting drunk. And like, it's a much longer story. You can find it online, and I don't want to like bore you with a 5-minute story, but seriously, once again, you can find many a Paul Thomas Anderson interview.
To kind of like put the exclamation point on how loosey-goosey, freewheeling his childhood was, He says that he watched his first porno when he was 9 years old.
This is pre-internet, everybody.
Yes, correct. Pre-internet, porn was being made all around him. Like literally physically, there's a lot of porn studios that were just around in that area. And so he just kind of quickly was aware of the industry. And I can just imagine a little huerquito Paul Thomas Anderson, like with his scuzzy high school friends being like, we love porn. He said in like a 1999 New York Times Magazine interview, he's like, yeah, I used to like jerk off all the time, but like I just made sure. What was he trying to make? He was trying to make this point that like I masturbate, but I clean up quickly, and I was like, huh, okay. And the editor was like, we're keeping that in. He made his first film when he was 8. He started making films on Betamax video, but then he started using 8mm film. He would experiment with stuff, and he would make, this short little films with friends. It's important to note that in high school, he made his first little the Dirk Diggler story, like with friends.
It's a half-an-hour short film called The Dirk Diggler Story, and it's essentially the pre-Boogie Nights basis, but it's like a goof.
Yeah, it's a goof.
You can find it on YouTube. I watched the whole thing.
He was a professional. All the way up until the end, he was a professional. You say what you will about the man, but when it came down to doing a scene, he was amazing.
Hold up.
It's
it's a sophomore in high school doing his best.
Yeah. It's cool that it's out there, though. I will give him that.
I heard him talk about on some other shows, like he wasn't really like, oh, do I have to go to college? I guess I have to go to USC or NYU or my flop. But then, like, he didn't get into, like, either of those right away.
Well, yeah, he said he couldn't get into college because his grades were bad.
Yeah. And so he was, like, kind of fucking around, doing nothing. He went to Emerson College for a little bit. He went to Santa Monica College for a little bit. He eventually made it to NYU, hated it, was like, oh, no, fuck this. I just need to be doing the thing.
He, on his second day, they had an assignment where they were told to write a script page where they show a characterization through only actions, no dialogue.
And I had read this great script by David Mamet, which was Hoffa, which was not made at the time. And there was a great scene that Mamet had written where Danny DeVito is driving along, his character's driving along, and it shows what he's going through by the method he uses to keep himself awake while driving, which is he lights a cigarette and he holds it between his hands and he lets it burn down to his fingers to keep him burning his fingers and keeping him awake. It's just so simple and perfect and lovely, and it's, Mr. Pulitzer Prize himself, David Mamet. So I took that page and I handed it in, and it got a C+. And I said, all right, now I know I'm right. And there's a wonderful thing that if you drop out quick enough, you can get your tuition back.
I mean, sorry to break it to everyone, but school is mostly fake.
Yeah, most of it is fake. I've had some great, which is not to say, like, I had some great teachers. My favorite college professor, I never would have met her, Kay McDonough, who's since passed away. Never would have met her, but I went to film school, and I can tell you, for the most part, correct.
Yeah, I went to school twice, and it was great, but fake. So he decides, I'm just going to start doing the thing. I'm going to wrangle friends to try and make a short film. And he ends up making Cigarettes and Coffee in 1993. And he submits it to Sundance short program. And it was accepted, it's screened. And then he was invited to join the Sundance Labs. And that's where he kind of like really, and I was like, oh, he actually did do this on his own. Like, even though he had his father who was in the biz, there really is no like, and then my dad got me the meeting with this guy. Like, that really didn't happen. While he was at the Sundance Film Labs, he decides to expand that short film into his first feature, which turns out to be a little bit of a mess. He had originally titled it Sydney, but the production company that basically was like financing it was like, no. They renamed it, recut it, did a lot of shenanigans. There are places where he says like, oh, I'm such a control freak. And then there are other places where like his editor's like, he's not a control freak. He thinks he is, he's not. He is so young here.
Right.
And like,
I think that's what it is. I think it's a folly of youth.
Yeah.
In all honesty.
When you read interviews from him back like in 1999, during Boogie Nights, Magnolia, that stuff, he's like very kind of manic. If you read interviews with him now, he's like, Yeah, well, Magnolia was a little crazy, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Like
I mean, I think that's what it is he was young and he was very self-assured. And I cannot stress this enough. For all that we just said about school, you know what's a really big thing is confidence.
Yes.
And I know that sounds really shitty to have someone be like, you should be confident. I need somebody to tell me to be confident every single day. But like literally a lot of this is getting by on confidence. He also said in an interview, you know, the reason he got this contract from Reicher Entertainment was after Pulp Fiction, the Quentin Tarantino movie, everybody was looking for their big indie hit.
But you got to understand that at that time, probably based on the success of Pulp Fiction and a couple other small independent films, there was a lot of cash floating around from these cable companies. So if you could make a movie for under $2 million, they could kind of sell it off piece by piece with just enough kind of genre elements and a couple cast names, and you could just go make your movie.
I mentioned my film professor back a little bit ago, Kay McDonough. I still remember years ago she asked me, she was like, what do you think was the film for your generation that changed things for people? She's like, I think it's 2001, because after that people became really interested in space. A lot of people became astronauts. And I was like, I'm gonna kind of invert my answer to that, because I feel like Pulp Fiction, however you feel about it, made everybody want to be a filmmaker. It didn't make anybody want to be like a hitman or a heroin addict, but everybody saw Pulp Fiction was like, oh, I could do that. That's what I want to do.
Right.
You know, he comes along in that era
Totally.
in which everybody wants to cut a check for a young, hot, confident filmmaker, and he's a white man.
Yeah.
And
So,
so,
a
like,
young,
he-
confident white man who's
exactly.
got all the privilege in the world.
Right. So he fits the bill.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, like you said, I think it's just a matter, you know, he said his original cut was 2.5 hours. They cut it down to an hour and a half.
I was bluffing my way through it, and I kind of like, I should have had a 90-minute movie, and I cut together this like 2.5-hour thing, and I thought, you know, I had to like plant a firm stake, like I'm not changing a frame of it, and they're like, I don't know about that. But really I'd only been working on it for 3 or 4 weeks, and I hadn't had time
to cut it properly.
And I was just bluffing, man. I mean, I was just completely making it up as I was going along.
He supposedly got it back after raising the money.
It's $200,000 that he raised. John C. Reilly, Gwyneth Paltrow, and Philip Baker Hall also contributed money to...
Yeah, all people who are in the film.
Yes, correct. I think this is Gwyneth's one of her first movies, right?
It's towards the beginning of her career, yes.
John C. Reilly, who like he had met via or through the Sundance Labs connection, he was like, you know, in Paul's eyes, he was a veteran. He had already done a lot of movies,
Right.
But
He'd done like 5.
yeah. So Hard Eight is a story about a gambler who like wants to, I don't know, find some solace with this protege played by John C. Reilly. Things go madcap and wire. Like it's just Samuel Jackson is in it. I will say the movie's like not great for women.
No.
Gwyneth is the only woman in it, really.
And that
It thinks it's good for women, but like,
and that is definitely I would say if there's one big issue with most PTA films,
not great for women.
not great for women. And like, yeah, I don't hate the movie, but I don't think it's brilliant either. But I do think it shows off that he is. It's very clear he's a good director from the early outset, and it's very clear that he has a specific viewpoint that was not necessarily being used during that time. A lot of the up and comers from that era, a lot of the young indie filmmakers were doing a lot of the handheld stuff. We're doing a lot, and his was very classic and very formalist. His camera is always moving. If it can be on a dolly, it's going to be on a dolly. I hate comparing filmmakers to other people, but it's an easy way for people to understand. You know, he is such a big Robert Altman fan, and he has very similar shades of Robert Altman, but he's not as free as Robert Altman was. He's almost like a Kubrickian formalist. Like everything is structured, everything is planned down to the moment.
It's like a little neurotic.
Yeah.
Like it's a little that Gen X vibe. Like it's very there and very present, just like kind of neurotic. While he was working on Hard Eight, he was also writing Boogie Nights.
Yes.
And so Hard Eight comes out in 1995. He's 26. Or he's 26 when Boogie Nights comes out.
Allow me to flip my computer.
Yes, correct. What were we doing when we were 26, Kevin?
Oh, I don't know.
Where were you living?
I was here. I was here in New York City. Yeah.
I was either in San Francisco, but I wasn't making movies, I'll tell you that, okay? I wasn't raising $200,000 to finish movies, okay? Hard Eight kind of gives him some indie cred. People are like, oh, he's a good director. It gets like pretty decent reviews. Roger Ebert wrote, movies like Hard Eight remind me of what original, compelling characters the movies can sometimes give us.
If I were to give you $50, what would you do with it?
I'd eat.
How long can you eat? How long can you live on $50?
I don't know.
I would bet not very long.
You would bet. So it didn't make like a huge splash, but
enough.
But enough, yeah. It was like right time, right place. New Line Cinema basically was like sniffing around for who is our Tarantino, what is our indie like hit. They'd already made like a bunch of money with I think Seven, the Austin Power movies had just come out. Like it was, so they were like, we want some prestige, we want some credibility. And
I mean, New Line for a very long time was referred to as the house that Freddy built.
Correct.
Nightmare on Elm Street was their first movie,
right.
So they wanted something that would put them in the market of like, hey, that award producing company,
right? And story goes that Paul Thomas Anderson's like script for Boogie Nights was like 300 pages, like a full like fucking Bible, and he was like toting it around Sundance, and basically like hounding the president of New Line and being like, here it is, baby, let's get it going. The president read it, fell in love with it, but again it would like be kind of a tug of war. Like he wanted to make a very pornographic, some might say, very long movie, and he was 26. The movie was made for like what, $15 million or something. Like it wasn't a lot, but even then, New Line was like, no. They had to cut a lot of scenes. They had to be very like specific to make. They were like, it has to be under 3 hours. It has to be rated R. We cannot have an NC-17 movie here. And a lot of like, I think it holds the record for MPA like requests. They were like, you can't show a woman like humping and talking. It can be like humping or talking, like one or the other. A lot of the movie that is like cut out, I think if you happen to have a DVD of it, there's a lot of
and that's something very common on most Paul Thomas Anderson, kids. They used to have these things called DVDs, and DVDs had special features.
They were kind of fun.
Oh, I mean, they were my favorite.
I mean,
that's when I was a teenager and DVDs came around, and I spent my first 2 paychecks buying myself a DVD player. That was my favorite thing, listening to director's commentaries, watching deleted scenes, and but I mean, it's very common, and a lot of that now has shown up on YouTube because he almost re-edits them. Because once again, Paul Thomas Anderson is Control.
Yes.
Re-edits them into like mini movies, like non-narrative mini films.
We talked about this movie in our Julianne Moore episode.
Yeah, very loosely. Yeah.
But Boogie Nights is basically the story of Dirk Diggler, like now in a full, almost 3 hour movie. I think it's like 2 hours and like 30 minutes or something.
Yeah.
There was a lot of back and forth though. Like New Line was like, let's do these cuts. And he's like, I think the fuck not. And he didn't have creative control over the movie. Like he did not have final cut, but he did end up getting a lot of what he wanted. And even though it was testing really poorly, it was a commercial, and critical, just like success. People loved this movie. This was the return of Burt Reynolds, who famously
had a huge issue with, didn't want the film, thought the film was going to be trash, got there, saw how young everybody was. There's a thing in Burt Reynolds' autobiography where he was talking about shooting a scene, and he said Paul Thomas Anderson was so smug that he couldn't stand him, and they would end a scene and Paul Thomas Anderson would be like, that was so good. We did this thing. And fucking Burt Reynolds would reply, yeah, we did this in this other movie I was in.
Yeah.
Like,
well, yeah.
If you like look at my film, like if you're going to steal kids, steal from the best.
Right.
And listening to that and knowing what we know about Burt Reynolds, especially from doing the Sally Field episode, that just makes me think he was just being an old asshole.
Crotchety.
Yeah.
There was tension for sure. I mean, there was tension that happened that, you know, I was 26 years old and really full of a lot of vinegar and confidence and barking directions at everybody. And I think just trying to get this film made. And I think some of that probably got directed at Burt, and he wasn't having it, and nor should he have. But that's not to say there weren't great moments.
Burt Reynolds gets nominated for an Oscar for this movie. Him, Julianne Moore, and I think it gets for Best Original Screenplay.
Yes.
I saw a quote that Mark Wahlberg said, who stars. Mark said, if Burt wasn't an asshole, he would have won the Oscar.
Yeah.
But Burt hated the movie so much. He hated being in it, but he was one of the ones who got like the most acclaim and praise for it, which is kind of wild.
Yeah, I've also heard that his like negative press tour is what tanked his opportunity to get that Oscar.
Yeah, and it was his return. He would like, it would have been like the perfect little, but whatever, fuck him.
And he's good in the movie.
He is good.
Yeah,
he's good. I like the movie a lot. It's you know, sad. It's tender, it's shocking,
it's funny,
and
it's occasionally epic.
Yes.
And I mean that in the traditional sense. Like there's a lot of stuff that happens in it and the other thing that I love, and we've talked about this before, character arcs. Paul Thomas Anderson said the thing that he was most interested in going in was making a movie in which no one changed.
Yeah.
And it's really true when you watch it. The character arcs exist, but that's circular. They end up exactly sort of where they were.
Right. I mean, it's like, you know, these characters are kind of tragic, so they have to go through the tragedy, but they're not going to like be changed for the better, quote unquote.
Right.
Like in the end, they're like, oh, we were actually at our best when we were together as a family.
Yeah.
You know, what if we weren't selfish? So that's Boogie Nights. Basically, New Line said, okay, kid, I guess fuck us. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah,
literally whatever. He had already started writing Magnolia.
Yeah.
He had this idea, and they didn't read anything.
No. And he kept telling people, oh, it's going to be small, it's going to be intimate, it's going to be like 90 minutes. And then in his own words, he kept saying, it just kept blossoming. But I do think it's funny. Did you ever hear the story about how he wrote it? He like spent a week in William H. Macy's cabin, and on his first day he went outside and saw a snake, and he was too scared to leave the cabin.
Incredible.
So he spent the entire... That's me, baby.
Incredible.
That's me. That would be me. I would be like, I saw a snake out there, I am staying inside.
Guess I'm writing a novel.
Yeah, exactly.
You bring up William H. Macy, though, is a good point for me to say he works with a lot of the same people.
Yes.
A lot of the characters and the actors will be seeing it in like...
And a lot of the behind the scenes people as well. You know, Jack Fisk comes up a lot, who does a lot of his scenic design. He uses, you know, John Bryan towards the beginning of his career to score his films. And he's done the same thing with Johnny Greenwood now.
He's keeping it in the family.
Yeah.
But so he does Magnolia next. And it's, again, this big, sprawling, you know, ensemble piece that is like kind of punctuated by this kind of cuckoo bananas performance from Tom Cruise. The movie is hard to describe. We also talked about this in our Julianne Moore episode, because she famously is also in this movie. But it's about grief and acceptance and forgiveness. There's a musical number.
There's a weather event.
There is a weather event. It also is just like a success. You know, it gets nominated for another couple round of Oscar things.
And like, make no mistake, this movie is indulgent. It's not, we don't want to...
When he like finished wrapping it, he was like, for better or worse, this is the best movie I've ever made.
Yes.
I will ever make. And I was like, okay, that's a 26-year-old.
And as you've said in more recent interviews, he's been like, I could cut 20 minutes to half an hour out of it.
Recently, he's like, that movie's too long. Yeah, it didn't need to be that long. And I'm like, yeah, huh?
Oh, I'd slice that thing down. I'd cut. It's way too fucking long.
Good.
Oh no, it's unmerciful how long it is. You won't get any. Yeah, I won't defend it.
And there's some really tender stuff that clearly comes from. I mean, all of this, the Jason Robards stuff, as Jason Robards is dying, he said that, later in his life, his father remarried. So a lot of the Julianne Moore stuff comes from this like woman who was ill prepared to take care of his father as he was dying. And so like there is
there's a lot of stuff in there. I mean, and it's wild because like, so he also worked on a game show as like when he was a kid. One of the plots of, this game show, John C. Reilly basically asked him if he could like play someone who was like lovable.
Yeah, because he kept playing sort of
man-child.
Yeah. And so
he was like, okay, girly, like let's get you in there too.
There's a great, speaking of special features, it was a special feature on the DVD, but you can find it on YouTube. There's a great hour-long making of documentary about Magnolia. Wow. It's called That Moment, and it is a portrait of a man who is not willing to compromise on anything.
There's a great New York Times magazine article where he's like, literally, the writer basically arrives at his house and he's like screaming, yelling, so furious because he just saw the poster that New Line made for the movie.
Yeah.
And then he's like, this is what they fucking want to run as a trailer, puts on the trailer and is screaming in the background. What ends up happening is that he designs his own poster.
Yeah.
And he cuts his own trailer.
And that's going to be for the rest of his career.
Yep.
He's going to be in charge of doing the promo materials essentially for his own movies as well.
Yes.
And so like he is a control freak. I don't want to like tell people he's not. Like he has to be the captain of his own shit.
But in that same story, he's like, they're like, Paul, like you won. Like we're doing the thing you want to do. And he's like, I know, but like I was an asshole about it and I was a jerk and like I shouldn't do that. But like, and they're like, but it's over, like it's fine. And so like it is this weird like fluctuation between like, you guys do whatever you want, but make sure it's exactly what I want. I also think like William H. Macy is such a funny character, and I love their relationship.
Me too.
I love
I like that character. Like once again, I don't know in terms of like queer representation. I don't know where Quiz Kid Donnie Smith fits on the scale of things, but I don't find it offensive in any way.
No, I don't. I will say, even though his movies are very straight, there's always some like homoerotic things going on.
All the way back to the Dirk Diggler story.
Oh, please.
The John C. Reilly character, it like flat out is like was his lover.
John C. Reilly.
Yeah, the John C. Reilly character from Boogie Nights, the character that is reflected in the Dirk Diggler documentary he made when he was a teen.
Oh,
that like it's explicit like that he was his lover, not Whereas in Boogie Nights, it's like,
well, they have the Philip Seymour Hoffman character,
right? Exactly,
who is like clearly
so sad.
I know, it's such a good performance. He's clearly like a queer person who maybe doesn't have the vocabulary, and maybe doesn't feel safe. To express that, and sees this gorgeous Mark Wahlberg.
The scene where he does kiss him. I know we're talking about another movie now. We went back to Boogie Nights, but the scene where he does kiss him is like the saddest thing in the world. But it's when it gets punctuated by like he's like, "Do you like my car?
Yeah,
because if you didn't, I was gonna return it."
I know.
I was like, no.
That's so heartbreaking.
I'm sorry,
What the hell is the matter with you?
I'm sorry.
Why did you do that, Scotty?
You look at me sometimes.
What?
I want to know if you like me.
Well, of course. Yeah, I like you, Scotty.
Can I kiss you?
Scotty, I don't.
Please, can I kiss you on the mouth?
No!
And I will
Philip girl, get some self-respect.
To the credit of PTA, though, it kind of goes back to like your thing of no judgment. Like, Mark Wahlberg's character doesn't beat the shit out of him.
No.
Doesn't, like, it's truly...
Which he probably would in real life.
In, like, in other hands, I think that would have been, like, a moment to, like, show how manly Dirk Diggler is or whatever. But that's not the case. And probably, I mean, Dirk also at the end of the movie, is, like, forced to go into sex work with men, much like the character that he's based off of. But But yeah, so I did appreciate that. And like, you're right, in Magnolia,
like I said, maybe Quizkid Dunny Smith is not the Paramore of queer culture, but it is interesting to put that character, a character who's so lost and willingly seems to accept their queerness, but also doesn't know how to function as a human being.
I'm sick and I'm in love. You seem the sort of person who confuses the two.
That's right. That's the first time you've been right. I confuse the two, and I don't care. Hey. Hey!
I love you. I love you, and I'm sick. I'll talk to you. I'll talk to you tomorrow. I'm getting corrective oral surgery tomorrow for my teeth. I love you, Brad. Brad, the bartender. You want to love me back? I'll be good to you. I'll be goddamn good for you.
But like him and Philip Seymour Hoffman's character in Boogie Nights are kind of the same thing. They're willing to like do expensive things to try and prove to a pretty classically hot masculine man that they can be with them. That
So what you're saying is there's some really hot guy that PTA is just can never. He's like I will make that one movie that will.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds, I made this movie for you. Do you like it?
It's called Licorice Pizza.
Yeah,
I hope.
I just heard you liked licorice on your pizza. It's
and and if you don't like it, I'll tell them not to put it out.
Yeah, we can just put it in the vault. Okay, so there's Magnolia. It's long. It's epic.
Yeah, epic.
How do you feel about the singing scene?
I love it.
You love it?
But I'm also a big Amy Mann fan. I mean, to me, it's way more out there in terms of anything that Robert Altman presents in Nashville, but it's very much PTA's Nashville.
Yeah.
Like, he's really trying to do Robert Altman's Nashville with the interconnecting characters. But like I said, he's such a formalist, because the thing that makes Nashville work is that it is so loose and it's able to sort of float between these people. And I perhaps Nashville's not a film you've seen, but you absolutely should. But
I have seen a Love Actually though, so well, there you go. I get it.
but that's so I think the when something like that happens, the singing scene, or when something like the weather event, I don't want to spoil it too much, because that is...
What do you mean spoil it? It's from 1999.
I know. So there's a scene in the film where it rains frogs, and which, by the way, apparently when he gave the script to Philip Baker Hall, he was like trying to describe it to him, and he's like, and then it rains frogs. And he thought Philip Baker Hall would be like preposterous. And Philip Baker Hall was like, that happened to me once. I had to pull over to the side of the road. I was in Italy.
Picture it. I'm in Italy. It's raining frogs.
Which I love. I think when that stuff happens, it feels more jarring than it perhaps would in a film that was less bound by its own nervous energy and less, like everything is tense, and you need those moments to alleviate the tension, but there may be a step too far for some people. I like them because like I need that. Like I need a scene where everybody sings Wise Up by Amy Mann.
What's fucking crazy is Sam, she was saying every fucking guy is like loves that scene, and she was like, I fucking know. I know you guys love that scene. I've seen it. I don't need to see it again. I get it.
Yeah.
And what's funny is that like that scene is so emotional and like vulnerable.
Yes.
And it's very bizarre that like probably like, and I know many of these straight men who I've dated girlfriends and who are exactly the guy who's like, that scene fucking changed my life, bro. And it's like, these vulnerable things are the things that like these men gravitate towards. And it's like, yeah, imagine being soft, being loving,
having emotions. Yeah.
What a thought.
It's so funny too, because apparently Julianne Moore sort of had to set the example for it.
Like, she was the lead vocalist.
Because none of them wanted to do it because they all thought it was going to be very silly. So they made Julianne shoot hers. My good friend Julianne.
Yeah.
They made her shoot hers first, with her doing her part, so they could get the tone for what PTA wanted out of them. And I think it's so smart because, I mean, having Jason Robards do it from his deathbed.
I know.
Yeah, it's...
Last note on that, as I'll just say that I thought Tom Cruise was very good.
Yeah, it's fine in it.
I was like, okay, great. And also, he's been interviewed before.
He's not a bad actor. He's just a bad person.
Correct. Paul Thomas Anderson's like, I knew that he had that within him. I knew he could pull it off.
That's the other interesting thing about Paul Thomas Anderson is he sees things in people that they perhaps people might already know is there, or maybe not. You know, during the press tour for this, people were like, "What's next?" And he's like, "Oh, I'd love to work with Daniel Day-Lewis, and I'd love to work with Adam Sandler."
Yeah, and then guess what?
Yes.
And so the next movie he makes, and he also was like, okay, this one will be shorter. This one will be shorter.
And you know what? He did.
And he did.
He pulled it off.
He makes Punch Drunk Love in 2002 with Adam Sandler and Emily Watson. It's a movie about this kind of like very neurotic,
socially awkward
small business owner.
Yeah.
Who has like a squad of sisters who are
at 7, I believe,
who are just awful to him.
Yeah.
And
another great like representation of women.
Yes, truly. Like literally, they are the personification of just like nails on a chalkboard. Like, hey, you stupid idiot.
Yeah.
Don't take things so seriously. God.
Constantly calling him gay, too.
Yeah, literally. Remember when we called you gay and you would cry about it?
Yeah.
I was like,
The funny thing is most of the actresses playing those roles outside of Marilyn Reichkub are not actors.
I mean, the movie feels like, in parts, very natural. Other parts, there's some like magic realism shit going on.
Yeah. Well, people have said you found a way to take the thing that Adam Sandler does in his movies and put it in a more real world. And every time I've seen someone say that in an interview, he's like, Punch Drunk Love isn't a real world. Yeah. He's like, it is a magical, like
there's like tiny fucking pianos appearing at doorsteps and shit.
Also, Philip Seymour Hoffman in another kind of small role in that movie, but very, very memorable role. So that's now 4 movies Philip Seymour Hoffman has done with him. And it's a love story between Emily Watson and Adam Sandler.
How do you feel about this movie, though, overall? Not great?
I don't love it. I'm in the minority on that one. I know this is another one that a lot of film bros really like. He calls out Robert Altman by doing the Popeye He Needs Me. The song He Needs Me from the movie Popeye, sung by Olive Oil, is used repeatedly. It's mixed into the score and everything. I have issues with this film because while I acknowledge it is not a real world, the thing that Adam Sandler is doing... It's not that I'm offended by it, but I just don't... That is a man with real problems.
Right.
Real problems. And needs help. And, like, I kind of hate movies where love cures mental illness.
So you hate love?
Yes, I hate love.
Cool.
And so it's one of those things that, like, I have a hard time breaching that. I'm well aware that's a personal thing. I don't hate this movie by any means. When this movie came out, I was not a fan, actually. And then I'd revisited it a bunch, and I've grown to like it better. I think it's also a very beautiful looking film, and I love the way that, like, everything is kind of drab until they go to Hawaii at the end, and then suddenly everything's colorful. It's a very old-timey film technique. But yeah, I don't know. And I also don't... Emily Watson... I don't know if she needs to be fleshed out more, but I don't understand why she's in love with it.
It's very random. She's like, I actually brought my car because I wanted to meet you.
Right.
It's like,
and in the scene that you sort of have to be paying attention, but in the scene where he's buying the pudding to like do the frequent flyer miles scam, like in the background, super blurry in a red dress, she's watching him in each aisle.
That's called filmmaking, Gavin. Okay, ever heard of it? Foreshadowing.
Oh, yeah.
Cinema verite.
You're just going to name all the mise en scène.
Oh, yes. Mise en place. Bon appetit.
I prefer tapas.
Punch Drunk Love, I would say, kind of underperforms critically and commercially. I think people are like, ooh, Adam Sandler did the thing. But like beyond that, it's like not really.
If we want to get into like the gossipy territory, John Bryan, who works with him on his music, worked with him for the last couple films, stops working with Paul Thomas Anderson after this movie. It's because he had recently broken up with Marilyn Reichkub, who plays the sister. And they had to watch the hours and hours and hours of the film to watch the woman that he'd recently broken up with act over and over and over again. It's very painful for him. In turn, he then encouraged Fiona Apple, who was Paul Thomas Anderson's ex at the time,
Yes.
to write a new album, which was Extraordinary Machine. Is that the...
I don't know which album, but I forgot that he dated for quite a while Fiona Apple.
Yeah.
And they were like weird Gen X hot it couple.
Yeah. Well, there's this really weird, I believe it's Extraordinary Machine, which apparently, like, I've heard that album many times, but I didn't realize, like, a lot of it's about her breakup with Paul Thomas Anderson, and it doesn't paint a pretty picture.
Gag.
But, so, like, John Ryan's out.
Every couple of weeks, when he's editing, he says, we should watch the whole movie, beginning to end. Doesn't matter how many times you've already seen it. Everybody gets very, very myopic, and it keeps him in the mind that people used to have to be in with films, which is, hey, what's important to the story? Guy who'd worked on tons of films was in visiting, and Paul played a big chunk. That guy stopped for a second and said, yeah, but, is there a problem here with the narrative? Almost seems like some of this doesn't add up or something. And I kid you not, because I sat next to him, and without the slightest bit of guile, he turned around and said, I know, isn't it great? If anyone else in town starts fucking doing that, maybe we'll have some movies to watch.
They work together really well, and, like, he mostly has complimentary stuff to say about Paul Thomas Anderson, but you will see there's a couple bridges that get burnt over time.
Okay.
But
seasons may change from winter to spring.
Exactly.
The next movie he makes is 2007's There Will Be Blood.
Yes.
Again, he is speaking it into existence. He says, you know about that Daniel Day? The movie is loosely based on Upton Sinclair's novel Oil. He said that, like, it's mostly like the first 100 pages of the book. And it was mostly for, like, a vibe check and just really setting the scene, because he had been writing a story about families that wasn't really working, and it wasn't until he literally he's randomly picked up this book.
Yeah, he said he was homesick. He was in England at the time.
Right.
And he was homesick for California, and he found Upton Sinclair's Oil and was like, oh, yes, California.
Yeah, right. Like, I miss Southern California. Let me fucking read this Oil book. The movie is stunning. It's a smash.
Yeah.
It's, like, named one of the best of all times in a million places. Daniel Day-Lewis wins an Oscar. It's nominated for a bunch of... I think it's the first movie he makes that's nominated for Best Picture.
Yes.
And Best Director.
Yeah, goes up against the Coens in No Country for Old Men, which was filming right next to them. In fact, one day when they lit the oil derrick on fire, they had to shut down filming for No Country for Old Men because the black cloud just, like, ruined everything for them. So... But it's funny that those two competing pictures became, like, the biggest pictures of that year.
It was the year of, like, the Wild Wild West in cinema.
And by that you mean they both used the Will Smith song Wild Wild West
correct.
as part of their soundtrack.
Correct.
It's very shocking, but it works.
This movie was shot in Marfa. It's very indie. Loves that for them. I didn't know this. Like, I was reading because I love this movie. I think it's great. Had never seen it before.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Between this and No Country for Old Men, I was like, oh, these look like masculine bro movies that I don't want. But I was so surprised because this movie is so good, and it's very not. Even, and I was like, I probably was like a little bit like, oh, I don't want to see Daniel Day-Lewis yelling. But a lot of the movie isn't him yelling. His character is so, like, complex and weird. What I didn't know was that Paul Dano was, like, moved up from, like, being just one of the brothers to playing both of the brothers.
Right.
Because the guy that they had hired, like, either quit or was let go.
He was let go. And he has said since that, you know, them letting him go was the best thing that ever happened to him because he always wanted to be a filmmaker and not really an actor. And he's like, had they not fired me, I'd still be trying to be an actor. And now he, like, works on making movies. So
the rumor was that, like, he was intimidated by Daniel Day-Lewis, which I was
not shocked.
I was intimidated to watch it because of Daniel Day-Lewis. I can't imagine being in it, but I was like, Paul Dano is so good, and, like, Paul Dano is a freak, and so is Daniel Day-Lewis, and so like it's so good. There's a lot of like, there are a lot of movies, not a lot because he's made 8, but a lot of his movies have moments where like there's a main freak, and then there's another freak who's like, you think you're the freak, I'm the real freak here.
And it's so funny too, because this plays so well into it, because literally, you know, Daniel Plainview, which is the Daniel Day-Lewis character, is like, well, I have the money, and Paul Dano's character is essentially like, that's fine, but I have the land and I have the people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and so you fucking need me.
Yeah.
Eli Sunday. And so it's like this gross sort of competitive yet parasitic relationship. And then in a way, they're the I hate saying this because it makes me sound like so cheap, but like they're the opposite sides of the same coin, you know. They both worship a god, except Paul Dano's is the Christian god, and Daniel Plainview's is oil, and money, and power. And
the moment I realized this movie was kind of gaggy was when like he's like, you must allow me to say the prayer before we start the oil, and he's like, okay, and then like literally grabs his sister, she's gonna bless it. And now we're moving along, and he's there with his little Bible being like, what the fuck just happened? I was like, shenanigan, shade. This movie is kind of gaggy.
Yeah.
And I like it a lot. So that's 2007. The Master is his first little foray into working with Joaquin, the Joker Phoenix. And I gotta say, like, for me, it's not...
Oh, really? I love The Master, but I get it.
I mean, so I think after seeing There Will Be Blood, and then later Phantom Thread, I'm like, see, Daniel Day-Lewis is in so much more control of his craft, and Philip Seymour Hoffman, I think, is similar in so much more control of his craft. Joaquin Phoenix is just like a flailing Magikarp, like.
But do you not think that works specifically for this character? Oh, really? Because I think that like
I think it's embarrassing.
Really, I think this is the place where like if you're gonna do it, like do it.
So we're like jumping ahead. The Master is about a lot of things. Like his movies are about a lot of things. But essentially, there is a man,
Freddie Quell,
who's like, oh my god, also there's a lot, again, so much weird kind of sex stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you had to be like his gay movie, this is his gay movie.
You think?
Yeah. I mean,
tell me.
Well, no, but I mean, I think there's plenty of avenues to, and that's one of the things I like about his movies as well. And like,
we literally said nothing about this movie yet.
I know.
Every time we try, we're like, wait.
Okay. The very Cliff Notes version. Freddie Quell comes back from World War II. He's disillusioned. He's violent. He's angry. He sneaks aboard a ship, and it happens to be the ship of a up-and-coming, essentially cult leader, played by Philip Seymour Hoffman, who has created this religion called...
Fake Scientology.
Yes, fake Scientology. I mean, it absolutely is fake Scientology, but it's called The Cause. Dodge sort of enlists Freddie Quell into becoming his right-hand man, and it's becomes this, once again, weird symbiotic relationship.
Yeah.
Do they hate each other? Do they love each other? Like, what is going on? You have Amy Adams playing Peggy Dodd, Lancaster Dodd's wife.
Mm-hmm.
You get the impression that, like, she's very controlling, and there's a very awkward handjob scene.
She said, you're going to stop drinking, right? I'm giving Gavin an air hand.
Yeah, I was gonna say Louis is miming right now, and she's like, "You're gonna come for me."
You can do whatever you want, as long as I don't find out. As long as no one that I know knows about it. Other than that, stop with this idea. Put it back in its pants. It didn't work for them, and it's not going to work for you. We have enough problems as it is. Okay. You come for me.
Some of the stuff that Lancaster Dodd does at the end when he which turns out there's a deleted scene as to why, but when he sings Slow Boat to China to him at the end, where he's like, I would love to get you alone on a slow boat to China. Like there's there's ways of interpreting it that you could be like, is Lancaster Dodd like in love with Freddie Quell? Is he in love with his freedom? Is he, does he wish that he could be this more animalistic thing? Does he see somebody that just a rube that he can control?
Yeah.
And that's the sort of, he needs this hard-headed,
It feels a little groomy.
Yeah. And I think all of that relationship stuff, and that's what I was going to say, is the thing I think's fascinating about a lot of Paul Thomas Anderson movies is he invites you into your own analysis. And it's not always necessarily about what's being said. Sometimes it's about what's not being said. And listen, I'm not slamming any film any big budget mainstream film that's out there, but sometimes it's nice to watch a movie and not hear a character just vomit exposition for 2 hours.
So this is why you did this exactly?
Yeah, exactly. And so The Master, I think, is, The Master's sort of up there with Magnolia in terms of his most maybe cerebral, maybe inaccessible, but also really fascinating and interesting. And plus, I mean, the look, nothing looks like The Master. It's so gorgeous. They shot it all in 70 millimeter. They had a giant camera the studio didn't want them to use. Nobody could project it.
Well, it took a long time for this movie to get made because Universal was like, no, girl, we don't care who the fuck you are or what you've made. We're not doing this stupid shit. And so it took a while, even though he had these stars on deck. The movie is successful both critically and commercially. I just think that Joaquin Phoenix is embarrassing. What kind of bums me out is that PTA loves Joaquin, loves him, has said that his performance in The Master, he's in awe of, and I'm like, ugh. That's straight behavior.
This is unfortunately the final performance Philip Seymour Hoffman gives for PTA. He passed away after that. I'm sure very hard. I mean, once again, this out of his 8 movies, he did 6 of them. Yeah,
the only one he hadn't while he was alive was
There Will Be Blood.
Yeah.
And it's funny because he said when he started writing There Will Be Blood, he'd written for his friends to be in, and then realized he didn't want to do the same thing again. He didn't want to be accused of doing the same thing again, and was like, okay, I'm going to use almost an entire cast of people I've not worked with again. Yeah. But there's 1 or 2 people in it that pop up, but for the most part it was a completely new cast.
Yeah, and I listened to a show and they asked him what do you miss most about Philip, and he was like, everything. I miss everything about him.
I thought that when I saw him for the first time in Scent of a Woman, that I just knew what true love was. I knew what love at first sight was, and it was the strangest feeling sitting in a movie theater thinking, he's for me and I'm for him, and that was it.
He gave him so many different types of roles and different types of people to play.
And he said when he would tailor a role to an actor, he would get their input. And so The Master, Lancaster Dodd was written solely for Philip Seymour Hoffman, with Philip Seymour Hoffman's input.
Right after that, he makes Inherent Vice.
Yeah.
While The Master was on the shelves, Universal dumped it.
Yeah.
And so he put it on a shelf for a couple months. While that was sitting, he started writing Inherent Vice, which is a adaptation of
a Thomas Pynchon novel.
Yes, Thomas Pynchon.
Yeah, I don't like Thomas Pynchon. I'll be honest.
Don't know her.
I read Crying of Lot 49 and Gravity's Rainbow. He's not for me. That's fine. I'd never. This was the PTA movie I had never seen. I'd been sort of avoiding it. I finally watched
because of Pynchon.
Because of Pynchon, but I ended up. I thought it was okay. I think PTA finds a really good way of distilling that sort of very heady but sort of philosophically sallow. Now I'm just saying adjectives. But that's the Thomas Pynchon stuff that I hate. It's here's a really heady idea, and here's a poop joke, and here's a really paranoid idea, and here's another poop joke, and it's okay.
I will say I thought this movie was funny in little places and then boring for the rest.
Yeah, the pace is a real big issue with this. I mean, this was him doing, not to once again bring up Robert Altman, but this was him doing The Long Goodbye, which is a very famous Robert Altman adaptation of Raymond Chandler novel that is very beachy and chill and like very 70s.
But also it's like, again, another movie where women are like, you know, not great for them.
Not at all.
And
though Reese Witherspoon was fun.
There's a lot of like this, like there's a lot of drugs in this movie. There's a lot of fucking in this movie. A lot of just like kind of bizarro. I don't think it's, and this is not a good or a bad thing. It's just inaccessible.
Yeah.
It's not an easy watch.
Yeah.
Because it's not like a really coherent plot. It kind of is sprawling. For me, especially because of the Joaquin Phoenix of it all.
Welcome to Chick Planet Massage. Please take note of today's Pussy Eater special, which is good all day till closing time.
How much is it?
$14.95.
Well, not that $14.95 ain't a totally groovy price, but I'm actually trying to locate this guy who works for Mr. Wolfman.
Oh, does he eat pussy?
A fellow named Glenn Charlock.
Oh, sure, Glenn. He comes in here. He eats pussy.
Well, Glenn and I were in Chino around the same time. You seen him today?
Are you a cop? The reason I ask is if you were a cop, you'd be entitled to a free preview of our Pussy Eater special.
Well, how about a licensed PI?
Hey, Bambi!
It's his latest movie, not including the one that's coming out now. It's 2017's Phantom Thread, reteaming him with Daniel Day-Lewis. I think people were like, oh, fuck. Like, this was kind of a shocking, maybe a little bit like turn for him. Felt very personal, felt very sumptuous, luscious, not quiet.
Yeah.
But like gorgeous music.
Yeah.
Beautiful gowns. Like
genuinely
beautiful gowns.
Yeah.
And yeah, I again had also not seen this movie.
Oh, I saw it in the theater.
And
loved it.
people, like, I knew people loved it. I just never got around to it. Watched it and I was like, wow, Gorgina. Daniel again is just like the true master. He says that this was his last movie, right?
Daniel Day-Lewis is like, I'm out. 75,000.
Yeah, he hasn't acted since. Whomst knows if he will.
I mean, he was always somebody, and maybe this is for a Daniel Day-Lewis episode later down the line. He's always been somebody who's been very weird about it. You know, on the side, he was a cobbler, person who makes shoes, because he doesn't consider acting a noble profession.
He was a Keebler elf?
He was a Keebler elf.
Wow.
So, like...
Making cookies. Now, that's nobility, babe. Leslie Manville in this.
Yeah.
This is one of those...
Fucking Vicky Krieps who came out of nowhere and was just like, hey, I'm here, bitches.
Yeah.
Like,
this is a movie where when she says... Don't you dare fucking pick a fight with me. I will fucking end you, bitch.
No, don't turn it on me. I don't want your cloud on my head.
Shut up,
no,
Sue.
you can shut right up. Don't pick a fight with me. You certainly won't come out alive. I'll go right through you, and it'll be you who ends up on the floor. Understood?
Daniel, I think, is an actual human who does method acting, and I think Joaquin is a non-human who also does method acting. The movie also gets a bunch of... Oscar nominations. It won for Best Costume Design for its best beautiful gowns.
And also, do you know where he came up with the concept of this movie? This is my favorite story about the movie.
No.
He was sick, and Maya Rudolph was taking care of him, and he saw her look at him in a way that he had not seen her look at him since they'd started their relationship, with such a love in her eyes. And he realized, like, oh, like, if I'm sick... she wants to take care of me.
Wait a minute. Yeah, the movie has like a delicious ending.
Definitely like slightly perverse.
I mean,
I've heard people
perverse, subverse.
Yeah, I've heard people interpret this film, and listen, we've said that he's not the greatest at his women characters, but I've heard people interpret this film as being sort of like a way of justifying the mental and emotional abuse of women. I don't think that's true. I think there's a very symbiotic sadomasochism.
I was like, this is high kink. Okay,
yeah.
This is very that. Yeah. What's it? The last isn't the last line?
Kiss me, hungry. Darling. Is it the For My Hungry Boy or the
Gavin?
Yes.
I thought
kiss me, darling, before I'm sick.
But I think after that, though, he says, I'm hungry.
Yeah.
Like, your boy's hungry.
Yeah.
And it's like,
yeah. He's very good in it. She's very good in it. Leslie Manville's very good in it. Everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody doing their best.
Gavin, we also watched, he does a little documentary, right?
Yes.
Which is so just like, I got a lot out of it.
Yeah, I loved it. It's great. Oh, good. Because I've definitely seen people that are like, ugh, like, I don't really understand. It seems sort of pointless. But it's not pointless. It's about the making of this album.
It's a short documentary about a group in India making an album. The album is called Junoon.
They're making it with his frequent collaborator, Johnny Greenwood.
It's just fucking special and fun, and like, it's very fly on the wall. There's not a lot of direct to camera. It's kind of like just seeing these artists, these musicians, doing this thing that they love, and you know that they're doing it out of love because they're not famous. They're not, like, the power keeps going out. It's on Mubi, is that right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
you can go and find it. I think it's a really quick watch.
It's 60 minutes, yeah.
But it really put a smile on my face.
And one of the things I love about it too is it's one of the only times you see Paul Thomas Anderson really break from that formalism, because he also does music videos, he does short films and everything, but they still have that structure that, like, the camera moves this way and and Junoon, like the way that it plays, it's so shaky and so like there's shot with drones and shot handheld, and it's fun to see him loosen up.
Yeah. It feels less precious, and somehow feels it feels less precious, but also feels very, like, loving.
Yeah.
So like Gavin said, he's directed a lot of music videos. I think most people right now will know him from his Haim music videos.
Yes. You know his connection to them, by the way?
No.
So their mother taught him art when he was a kid.
That's
like in school.
Crazy town.
He still has paintings he painted with her. He hung one in his child's bedroom.
I feel like they are of the same place.
Yes.
Like, it's
that's what he said, is they feel like home to him.
Yeah. He also did a, like, Tom York short thing for IMAX.
Yeah, essentially a music video.
Yeah.
It's on Netflix as well. It's like 15. It's called a one reel because it's 15 minutes. In other words, one reel of film. It's called Anima. It's fine. It's a lot of dancey dance.
As far as personal life, I mean, we talked a lot about, we mentioned that he's with his partners, Maya Rudolph. They have 4 kids. I've heard him talk about that they love the movies. They love going to Marvel movies. He has a great story of, like, his youngest came into a room, like, where he was editing a trailer and it said rated R, and the kid was like, "Oh, another one? Why?" And he's like, "Oh, because they say, like, we say some bad words in there." I was like, "Which ones?" And he's like, like the F word. And then the kid literally says, "Fucking asshole."
I keep mentioning Robert Altman. Robert Altman was really, like, his career idol and a filmmaker. Really, he said he was really influenced by Altman, Jonathan Demme, and Stanley Kubrick, who have all since passed away. But Robert Altman, when he was making his final film, A Prairie Home Companion, they were really scared he was basically going to drop dead on set.
Jeez.
So they hired PTA to be a standby director. So he had to, like, show up to set every day.
He's still alive, babe.
Yeah, exactly. To like shadow his mentor, and Maya Rudolph is in that movie too. So it's kind of funny. But yeah, that I'm glad he got to spend time with Robert Altman before he passed.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of gets us today. I think we'll talk about Licorice Pizza in the fast forward.
Neither of us has seen it.
No,
because it's not out until next week.
Well, that is planning on our part. But coming away from, like, he has such a small body of work, but, like, he is so invested in every single thing: the writing, the directing, maybe or maybe not cinematography, the music,
the editing.
It's just like, this is a true auteur, right? And he's still so young.
Yeah.
And he's talked about, like, and this is kind of, I guess, getting into some fast forward vibes, but, like, he's like, Quentin Tarantino says he wants to retire after 10 movies. Haha. He's like, I want to do what I love for as long as I can. Are you crazy?
My favorite thing about that quote that he said was, like, it's like saying you're not coming to a house that you haven't been invited to. I'm not coming over tonight. Well, you weren't invited. Well, I'm not coming.
Right. It's like, I love how much he loves what he does.
Yeah.
Even though I don't understand some of it sometimes, I can still tell that like he is there and there's so much effort and gusto. And so I applaud the effort. All right, Gavin.
Let's move into our picks.
Let's get into those 1-star reviews. Do you want to go first?
No, I want you to go first.
You want me to go first?
I want you to go first.
Okay, fine, I will. My 1-star review is 2014's Inherent Vice.
I can see it.
You know, and this is just me, like, so here are 8 films, and I was like, which one did I like the least?
Yeah.
And honestly, like, I thought that like it's a confusing movie. It for me had the least entertainment value. And I will say, I know a lot of people love The Master. I didn't love The Master, but I thought it was beautiful.
Yeah.
And I thought Amy Adams was great in it.
Amy Adams, beautiful. Laura Dern,
beautiful. When they go to the Martin Short, essentially.
Yeah, my favorite thing in the movie.
That's truly, I was like, this mama is gold.
So what have you been up to?
Escaping mostly. And I escape real good.
Escaping what?
Chris Skyladin, this like booby hatch my parents keep sending me to.
Booby hatch? Up in Ojai?
You know it?
Shakes a tambourine.
Dr. Rudy.
Okay, all right. Japonica, you promised me. Did you not promise me? What are you doing
I
here?
escaped again for you.
Oh, forget. Woo! Woo! Look at the greedy little hippie snoring away, are you?
Nothing really else for me worked as far as storytelling. I felt it's the most like disconnected and like I don't feel him in this.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
As opposed to like, you know, even though it is like the 70s and he does love the 70s and it is California and it's all about California, to me it just felt like first of all, it's in service of this other book. Like this is a story that he's trying to distill, and it felt very much like this is something that he probably admired and was just trying to like give his take on. But for me, I think Joaquin once again is just doing the most, and I'm just like, and then also it just never came together for me. For me, it's his most heady and like, but says the least.
Yeah.
You know,
that's exactly how I feel about Thomas Pynchon. So I get it. I understand what you're saying. Yeah. It's the, like I said, the pace is so leisurely and there's so many ideas. And like, I definitely understand that, you know, it's coming from this 70s paranoia. Like when you moved out of the free love of the 60s and you're heading towards the materialism of the 80s. You have Nixon in the White House, and it's a very paranoid time. You know, Vietnam is happening, and so I think like that muddies everything up in a way that makes it maybe not as pleasant. But also the ideas are so disparate over the entire thing that you sit there trying to make the connections yourself, and honestly, they're not important. Right. And that's a little frustrating to watch a 3-hour movie where nothing's important.
Yeah.
I liked it a slight better than you did.
Okay.
But I can see.
I mean, I think it's just like also, so the movie is about this stoner hippie private investigator.
If I had to look at the bottom of his dirty fucking feet one more time in that movie.
I know.
And I was like, who's this for? Is this for Tarantino?
I know.
Good buddy Tarantino?
There's a lot of the things in this movie I'm like, who is this for? But also it's like, am I supposed, I was like, wait, is this how it was? Like, he's pretending to be a doctor. He's writing notes. I was like, what is going on? He's a private investigator. And like, there's a plot about a contractor buying up homes, and like it's kind of talking about gentrification, but like really early and pushing black people out. There's also like there's mysteries about like his ex-girlfriend has gone missing. He's trying to find these people. There's a lot of drugs involved,
smuggling, and
I was just like, what is going on? Josh Brolin's there. He's cute.
Yeah. Though kind of a bad person, but we'll talk about that later.
Reese Witherspoon, like you mentioned, she's fun.
Yeah, Eric Roberts in a very small role, like Joanna Newsom in her first acting role. So
yeah, so there's that.
I mean, yeah, there's stuff I like in it there, but and like you said, there's definitely some things that actually really made me laugh.
Yes,
I mean it's his most like flat out comedy, I would say. But even that is, but I like that he, a lot of his characters can be boiled down to like specific motivating factors. And I like that this character specifically Joaquin Phoenix is playing is like obsessed with mystery. And so like, that's why he's a private eye. He may not be the world's best private eye, but he's certainly not terrible at his job because he's just obsessed with uncovering the truth. The movie itself, maybe not
less
necessarily.
Obsessed.
Yeah.
It's like the mystery is like kind of like this quagmire, and then like the movie is even less interested in really it's just like him fucking a lot and doing a lot of drugs and going to, strip clubs or whatever. And I was like, okay, like it felt to me like the most gratuitously, like aggressively straight. And I can just imagine a lot of like straight men being like, yeah, this fucking movie, it really makes you think. And it's like, no, it doesn't. It actually means nothing to me. But anyway, Gavin, what was your 1-star review?
So you probably guessed from the rewind, but my 1-star review is Punch Drunk Love, which is a film that, like I said, I don't hate. But the parameters of this show is that we have to pick a best and a worst. And so if I have to pick one that I like the least, I believe it's Punch Drunk Love. Come at me, film bros. I do not care. I just have a really hard time with the relationship that this movie is supposed to build between Adam Sandler and Emily Watson. I don't understand what connects them. I have a hard time with Adam Sandler's character because I understand that, as Paul Thomas Anderson has said, this is not a real world. That's fine. But his character doesn't feel like he fits in anywhere. World. Yeah. And it's frustrating to watch because I think there are moments where he's being vulnerable that we're supposed to laugh. And there are moments where he's being terrifying that we're supposed to laugh. And once again, if this were like a normal quote unquote Adam Sandler movie, one of the $7 films that he makes for Netflix, like that would be played much broader and it would feel, but here it's so uncomfortable. And yet I still feel like Paul Thomas Anderson's like, why aren't you laughing?
I didn't get the sense that they were asking me to laugh, but what was weird, it was like this character is just like every awful thing that could happen to you in a day all the time.
Yeah.
It's like this is a character who's being punished over and over again for being vulnerable, for doing the right thing, for trying to be nice, to trying to placate his sisters, actually reaching out to someone who he thinks is like a safe person to say, can you please find me some help? Like every single time he puts himself out there, he is beat up for it. And I guess that's the punch drunk part of this movie, but like the love part of it does not feel like it is the balm that is supposed to like,
right.
Especially because like, number one, their chemistry is like tepid at best. And I do think there are some sweet moments.
Where, I think there's absolutely some sweet moments.
When like she calls down and is like, I want you to kiss me. Like,
and honestly, like, I don't think Adam Sandler's giving a bad performance.
No.
But I don't think he's giving a great performance either, that's the...
But I think it's just because like, it's almost like the Michael Scott of it all. Like, just like, but always. And like, maybe that's what you're getting at. Like, there was never, like, in The Office with Michael Scott, like, they're actually giving you some, harder comedy to, like, get there.
Yeah.
That doesn't really happen. Like, I don't think Punch Drunk Love is funny at all, any place. Like,
I don't really either. And
I hope he doesn't think...
But I also don't think it's that sweet either. And I think it's supposed to be like, well, love is bittersweet and whatnot, but it doesn't...
No, it never gets there.
It never gets there.
They're like, it's very brief shades of it. Because even, bitch, I'll say, going to Hawaii is a little bit psychotic behavior.
Yeah.
I did like the ending when he goes to to Philip Seymour Hoffman and they have that confrontation. Like I was like, yes, finally this man has some fucking like life in him. Did you?
And I really like the Philip Seymour Hoffman stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Does that not feel like a full other movie to you, though?
Absolutely, yes.
Because it occurs so late in the game.
What's your name, sir? Answer me!
What's your name, asshole?
I'm Barry Egan!
How do I know? You could be anybody,
You're a bad person. You have no right taking people's confidence in your service. You understand me, sir?
You're sick.
No. Shut up! Shut the fuck
You have
up!
no right to take me
Shut up! Will you shut up? Shut up! Shut up!
It's a little disconnected. It's
Yeah.
very like, what universe is this in? Like, what? Why?
Right. And I love Philip Seymour Hoffman's performance in that, the like, shut up,
Fuck you.
fuck you.
No, fuck you.
Yeah.
Does he have a phone in his hand?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's so good at it, but at the same time, it fully just feels like a whole other thing.
Did you, do you know what he said his favorite Adam Sandler movie is?
No, but I can only guess it's something deranged.
I want you to guess.
Is it Big Daddy?
It's Big Daddy.
Yeah.
It's absolutely Big Daddy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
On the same show I was listening to, they asked him, like, why did you want to work with Adam Sandler? Like, what do you love about him?
But that's the other thing that I love about Paul Thomas Anderson is he doesn't have a distinction between high and lowbrow
I know.
art. Like
I love that answer.
Which is not me saying that I think it's lowbrow art. I don't, but I think the consensus would be that like if you put something like Billy Madison up against
Big Daddy,
or Punch Drunk Love, like people would be like, this is the order in which they are.
Right. But yeah, he fully is like, yeah, I mean, like, I like Happy Gilmore and like whatever. He's like, but Big Daddy is just like where, it really works for me. And he also was just like, I think Adam Sandler, as he ages, is getting more and more handsome. I think like...
But that's actually probably true.
And he was just like, I was like kind of taken aback. And again, being like, oh, because those same film bros would never pick Big Daddy.
Right.
I remember Hip Hop Anonymous a lot.
Hip Hop Anonymous, yes.
And also when they go to McDonald's to try and get...
breakfast.
Yeah.
And now they have 24-hour breakfast. Look.
Thank you, Big Daddy.
Yeah, be the change you want to see in the world.
But yeah, so all that to say, I think that was a very good pick, Gavin. I think both of ours are kind of movies that like just don't work in every way that he thinks that they work or want to work. Flawed.
Was there anything else that you saw that you didn't particularly like?
I don't think I got as much out of The Master as everyone else did.
Yeah.
I don't think
that's
it's
fine.
I don't think it's for everyone. I was genuinely like at first
I feel like it didn't recoup its money either, so like
I think, I was at first...
Not that success is based on monetary value, everybody.
At first
Before you think I'm a monster.
At first I was mostly disturbed by like Joaquin and his character, and then I was like, this is just embarrassing for me.
Secondhand embarrassment's a real thing.
Yes.
I've seen movies where I feel embarrassed watching.
But
I mean, that's kind of how I feel watching Adam Sandler, and maybe like, I get
it though.
Like,
but I will say at the end of that movie, I was like, there is still a movie here, obviously, that he's trying to make about family and like, finding your place. And it works.
Right.
Like it gets the job done. But not for me.
And then some people are just really fucking lost.
Yeah.
And there just isn't.
Yeah.
Let's get out of our 1-star reviews and into our 5-star reviews.
My 5-star review is 1997's Boogie Nights. I watched it again for this episode, and I was just like, she really does slap. From beginning to end, it's giving you everything. Like, Paul Thomas Anderson put his all into this movie, and it feels kind of like what I was saying, like there was no... The way that Inherent Vice felt so impersonal to me, Boogie Nights feels personal, like, on every level. I love all the performances. I think that the family stuff here is just so potent, especially considering it's all about chosen family, especially considering it's about this deviance, quote unquote, family.
Yeah.
Like, and for me, I guess it's like this perhaps in my eyes, is his most queer film because it's about sex and sex positivity. And even though these are outcasts, there's that scene where Don Cheadle is trying to get a loan. He has moved away from the porn industry. He's married to a white woman. And you think that's where this is going. You think that this, like, the bank is not going to give him a loan because this is an interracial couple. And they're like, we cannot be associated with pornography. And he's like, no, this is a legitimate business. I'm not, that's not who I am anymore. This is not my life. And it just feels like, like this, the sex positivity of all. It's so unjudgmental. Yeah. I love that he cast real porn stars in the movie in roles that are not about porn at all.
Right.
I think is it Vicky Hart plays the judge?
Yeah, and she's good.
Yeah, she's great. And everyone had said like, oh no, she is the greatest porn actress. Like that, she's a great actress. The woman who plays William H. Macy's wife, was a porn star. He clearly actually loves this community. Like this was kind of this love letter to this industry and community that was all around him. Do I think he probably has like this weird sex fascination? Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
But who cares? Like he's not hurting anybody. And in the end, the movie is not about sex. It's literally about like these people who are uplifting each other and like respecting each other. God, the scene when Roller Girl like almost fucking kills that guy. And it's like all these people are just trying to find dignity, and with each other. And it's, the relationships are fucked up. They're fucked up, but families are fucked up actually, and, Julianne Moore with Dirk Diggler, and like, she's desperate to have this like mother-daughter, even mother-daughter, because her and Roller Girl, when they're high, like she's trying to be like this motherly figure.
I was thinking something. I was going to see about taking the GED. Do you know what that is? Mm-hmm. For high school, to graduate. It's because I never got my diploma. I feel bad, that I think you were right about that. I think you were right.
You should do it. You should do it, Roller Girl, because you know what? If you wanted to, you could do anything.
It's very queer. It's this very queer, and that's outside of like all of the obviously inherent sex and the sexuality of like Dirk's massive cock, and like the prosthetic of it all. Like there's a really good oral history on Grantline. If you Google it, you can find it.
Oral,
ha 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 ha. And it has a lot of great details on how the movie was made. It's just fascinating to me. He was so young and like fighting, literally almost getting into a fist fight with Burt Reynolds on set. Yeah. I think he did Burt Reynolds did get into a fist fight with Thomas Jane, who plays that, like, is a small character.
Yeah, very small character. I was a little shocked when I read about that fact.
There's just so much going on. The scene of like is it Alfred Molina?
Yeah.
His scene with like the firecrackers going off, like, is maybe one of the most like spine tingling, like tension fraying, nerve fraying is what I mean.
But also
scene.
Really balances the comedy of it.
Yeah.
Because that scene is ridiculous.
Yes. That movie, you're totally right. Because the sheer comedy of Dirk and Brock trying to be pop stars.
Yeah.
Like that movie is very funny. And so, yeah, this movie has everything. It's also beautiful. I think if you watch the first 15 minutes of it, you're like mesmerized at like how the lighting, the way everyone looks, the costumes.
That long shot that opens it.
Yeah, it's just gorgeous. I mean, Heather Graham is great in it. Burt Reynolds, unfortunately, is very good in it.
It's so funny, too. The people who are the best in it that are not John C. Reilly and Julianne Moore, all distance themselves from it later on.
I know. Heather Graham won't talk about it.
Burt Reynolds hated it, is dead now. Mark Wahlberg said that he had to ask forgiveness from God. He's since sort of walked that back a little bit.
I think Mark Wahlberg is very good in it also.
He is. It's probably the best best role he's ever, because I don't think he's much of an actor, I'll be honest.
It's like he works in here because he is this outsider. He is outsider looking in on these actors. And he has, obviously, he's got like the physicality of it down. And he has that baby face. But again, like this is just like the perfect movie of like riding in circles, going in circles. So yeah, I love that movie.
So my 5-star review is going in the complete opposite direction, and that's 2007's There Will Be Blood.
Oh, Gabby, yes, bitch, yes, bitch.
And There Will Be Blood is not funny. It's mostly deathly serious. I mean, there's funny moments.
It's not funny, but it still has so much sass.
Yes, very much that. As we talked about in the Rewind, it's a movie about Daniel Plainview, who is a silver miner who decides to take advantage of the oil industry booming in California in the turn of the century. He strikes oil, ends up, and this is very Cliff Notesy version, ends up with a child that's not his own due to an accident that leaves a man dead and a child an orphan. So he adopts this child. The child ends up going deaf due to an explosion. But Daniel Day-Lewis really isn't much of a father anyways. Like, he's more using this kid as
it's like a marketing tool.
Yeah,
it's like
that's a perfect way to describe it.
I'm a family man.
Yes.
I mean, the basic plot of this is like they are just going around the country scheming about how can they manipulate landowners into giving them the rights to their fucking underground wells and shit.
Right.
Or not wells, but like to drill. He's like, well, let's drill here, guys. We'll give you a little money. There'll be roads.
There might be oil under here. There's some oil deposits, whatever. And then my wealth will increase your wealth, jobs.
Capitalism, the movie.
Exactly. He ends up finding about this tract of land from Paul Sunday, and whose brother Eli Sunday is a preacher in this town, and he's a very evangelical, charismatic, very hands-on people, screaming at the Lord and
shouting for the devil to get out.
Yes, absolutely. And the rest of the movie is this sort of back and forth tit for tat between these two about power and what that brings forth. I didn't even mention Daniel Plainview's brother shows up at one point, but is he his brother or is he not his brother? And of course, in the end, there is blood.
I said, you know what? They told us, and honey, there was blood. Not a lot of blood. Not gratuitous.
No,
again,
it's not gratuitous. Not gross.
Controlled.
I think what I find so fascinating about this film is that it is such a deep deconstruction of that greed mindset. Daniel Plainview is a character whose only motivation is the acquisition of stuff. It's money, it's oil,
there is a
power.
Competitiveness in him.
Yes, exactly. And admittedly, people might see that scene as him explaining it too well, or providing perhaps too much narration into his inner thought process. But I think it's absolutely necessary, because one of the things that he is very aware of is who he is, which is the one advantage that he does have over Eli Sunday, because Eli Sunday doesn't realize he's a fraud.
Thinks he knows who he is,
right? But he's show, and Daniel Plainview is show when he needs to be and when he's not, and so
doesn't he say that he hates everybody?
Yeah,
I have a competition in me. I want no one else to succeed. I hate most people. There are times when I look at people and I see nothing worth liking. I want to earn enough money I can get away from everyone.
What I care about is money and power. And he's like, when I've got to get up there and do the song and dance to like sell the shit, I'll do it. But don't come around here, bitch. I don't care about you.
And that's the main conflict between him and Eli, is that they are the same. Their focus is different, but they're very much the same person. And it kills Daniel Plainview that Eli is so well liked and it's so easy for him. But at the reverse of that, Eli hates the fact that Plainview is fake. That that he has this inner demon.
Well, they're both fake.
Right.
They hate that, like, they can see the fakeness in each other.
Yeah.
And they're like, you fucking little bitch. Oh, I see what you're doing. And they're both doing it to each other
right.
the entire time. It's delicious.
I will say, you know, there's 2 knocks against this movie.
Okay.
I do think one is super unfortunate. The first one being name a woman.
Name a woman.
Name a woman.
Yeah.
There are, like, no women in this movie. I mean, they exist.
Mm-hmm.
You certainly see them.
There's, like, the mom who does not talk, really.
And there's the fiance of his son.
Yes, she's, like, they grew up together.
Yeah.
I love them.
But, like, oh, yeah. And the stuff with the son is so tragic. At the end when he's like, you're not my son. And, And that whole thing is, he's no longer useful to him.
Yeah.
And so he's
not only no longer useful, but actively competition now.
Yes.
Actively going to be someone that is in his industry that he's going to have to compete with. But again, another great queer moment of like, no, I'm different. And you, because he's deaf. Because of him, by the way.
Yeah.
And he's like, I know you can talk, fucking talk. And his son now speaks to an interpreter with ASL, and he refuses to learn ASL.
Yes.
And it's just that fucking horrible moment where he's like, if you're gonna fucking leave, you better fucking talk to me right now. And he speaks. And for deaf people, that's so just, again, robbing them of dignity.
Yes.
Robbing them of their language. And it's horrible. It's horrible. And that moment like really fucking got me. And he says, I'm going with my wife to Mexico to start our business. And it's just like, this man is at the peak of, I don't know, the corporate overlords have like taken over his spirit. It's just like he gives no fucks about anything anymore.
Yeah. And that's what one thing that I think is really impressive about this character is this is not a likable character. This is not anything to aspire to be, but he is relatable.
Mm-hmm.
You, as an audience member, have to, in order for this movie to work, have to be able to connect in to whatever awful place Daniel Plainview crawled out of.
Yeah.
And understand it. And like, that's one of the things that has fascinated me about this movie is that like, I don't think I'm a Daniel Plainview, but there's some of the things that he says are I'm just like, oh boy,
yeah,
oh no,
yeah,
like that's in me, that's in all of us, that's in the dark place of all of us. The second knock, I will say, that ending, while great, is an 11 when everything else is not, and so it gets a little pantomime-y to an extent, and I don't think it's bad because I think Paul Dano and Daniel Day-Lewis are so good at what they're doing. But, like, it is... Rewatching it this time, I was just like... Oh, like, you let them swing for the rafters, and this could easily have gone wrong. It's dark, and it's deep, and I love...
It's good, though.
Yeah. It feels... It's oddly cathartic when you get to the end of that movie. And maybe it's that you no longer have to spend time with Daniel Plainview, but part of you wants to.
Yeah, I mean, but it's the dark... and the deep of it, like there are so many movies that try for that.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh, this is just miserable. I don't want to be here.
Right.
But like There Will Be Blood, I'm like, it's kind of delicious.
Yeah.
It's kind of just like thou doth want to live deliciously. Like it's kind of like, ooh, it's good to be bad. Unlike so many other like, let's just make everything really dark and gray.
Yes.
This guy's just an asshole and like not a real human being, not a real it's just like yeah, oh, good.
And then also just beautiful looking film.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. She was my number 2 pick, so.
Oh, excellent. Was there anything else that you saw that you particularly liked?
I think there are parts of Magnolia that I really love.
I was just going to say, for as much as he's like, I could cut down Magnolia, and hey, listen, I agree. I really do like Magnolia, but it is long, and there's a lot.
There's a lot, but there are parts of it that are genuinely surprising and moving.
I mean, I know The Master doesn't work for you. The Master works gangbusters for me. I really love The Master.
Ghostbusters?
Yes. And I like the interplay between those two characters. I like the duality of it, the like sadness in Freddy's character and the sadness in the Dom's character. You know, they're sad. They're sad people, and they're both looking for something they can control. And in the end of that movie, neither of them ends up in control of the thing that they want.
Right.
I mean, that more than anything, that scene with Laura Dern when she's like, why, when she confronts Philip Seymour Hoffman about changing the word
memory.
Yeah, it's like,
or imagine.
He changed it to imagine, and like that's the whole thing. Like that's the movie right there, but yeah, I really like that one. Boogie Nights also. I mean, I know that you said it as your 5-star review, but genuinely so good.
We haven't. Phantom Thread.
Oh yes, of course. Yeah. That would have been my number 2 actually, and I truly love that movie, and I truly love those 3 main performances.
Yeah. I think Daniel Day and him are a match made in heaven.
Yeah, it sort of bums me out that Daniel Day is like, I'm retiring because
of things, whatever. Yeah,
they could make many more movies together.
Yeah, I think them together are so good. I mean, just thinking about like going from There Will Be Blood to Phantom Thread as like a little feature is just like living in luxury. Yeah. That's just like opulence in cinema, honey.
Absolutely.
Alrighty, let's get to our mixed reviews.
Oh yes, thank you.
My 1-star review was 2014's Inherent Vice.
And my 1-star review was 2002's Punch Drunk Love.
My 5-star review was 1997's Boogie Nights.
And my 5-star review was 2007's There Will Be Blood.
Alrighty, let's get into the fast forward. Not the drag race. Ooh, girl. Paul Thomas Anderson already done had hers. We're talking about Paul Thomas Anderson because by the time this comes out, he will have a movie out in theaters.
Yes.
Licorice Pizza. Famously starring the tiniest Heim girlie.
As well as Philip Seymour Hoffman's son.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cooper, I think is his name.
Yes, Cooper Hoffman.
He's taking us back again to, the 70s, back to the San Fernando Valley. The early word is that it's very good. We, Gavin and I shall see.
Yes.
Listeners, you shall see.
As I was telling Louis going into this episode, I'm actually really happy we did this because I saw that trailer for that movie and I was like, ugh, like, please, auteurs, like, stop making movies about men in the 70s. Like, I'm tired. I've seen it. Like, everybody has their men in the 70s movie. Doing this movie, doing the research, rewatching these films, I'd forgotten how much I truly do love Paul Thomas Anderson as an artist. Sorry, Sam. It's okay. I guess our date's canceled. But I do like seeing what he brings to the table, and oftentimes what he does bring to the table is a lot more surprising than I think he's given credit for. So, with that being said, rewatching the trailer, watching some of the interviews about it, I'm actually so much more excited about this movie, and I am curious to see how it turns out.
I'm really hopeful and hoping that that Alana character is the protagonist and it's not Cooper.
I am too.
She's like the big sell on the posters.
But he cut the trailer, so
it could go either way.
I mean, he oftentimes in his trailers uses scenes that are not in the movie, so who knows? Some of those scenes might not even be in the movie.
Right. You're right. When the surprises are the best ones. Like, There Will Be Blood was amazing for a lot of reasons, but like you said, a lot of his usual cast of characters weren't there. Phantom Thread, that movie, you think it's going one way, and then in the last 5 minutes, you're like, gag. It's so good. And so I wonder, and he puts those challenges to himself. He wanted to make There Will Be Blood to do something different, to not go back to the Valley 70s.
Yeah.
He is back there now, and I wonder if the way he's going to like kind of twist that around is, I don't know, maybe make good with like giving us some like feminine.
That would be nice.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
A change of pace. He's 50 years old. Maybe he could, I don't know, name a woman. He did it, I don't want to say by himself, but he did it really by working hard.
Yeah.
And by sticking to his guns and going against the grain. I was before I like learned all this stuff, I was like a little annoyed. I was like, oh, this fucking white dude who just like, and there is a lot of that. There certainly
I
is.
will say, you picked this topic. I do want to put that out.
Well, because I saw Licorice Pizza was coming out. Gavin, don't put me on blast like that. And to be fair, I was like, we need to do a straight guy.
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, I'm surprised by how much I'm like, oh, he really put in the work. He is working with very talented and cool people, giving them lots of great opportunities.
Yeah.
And so I got a deeper appreciation and understanding, even though, like I said, some of the stuff too heady for me, but it's not made for me, you know, like
right.
I mean,
honestly, a lot of his stuff is made for him.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the best art is just that, you know? So
I mean, like, and that's fine, you know?
Yeah.
Art doesn't have to be for everyone. Every guy's like,
right.
it's fine.
It doesn't. And hopefully you've taken that away from this podcast in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to see from PTA going forward?
He has such reverence for everything that came before, whether it's something from the 40s, something from the 60s. I would love, I think, for him, you know, he said Punch Drunk Love was really inspired by Ginger Rogers' Fred Astaire, but taking the music out of it, taking the musical numbers out of it. I wouldn't mind seeing a PTA musical. It could be a disaster. And I don't want to be like, of course he could make a musical. I don't know if he could.
I mean, he definitely has the visual sense for it. And so I could fuck with that.
Yeah.
I would like to see him do like a straight comedy.
Yeah.
Because
I don't think he can. I mean, I know
he thinks a lot of his movies are funny. Like, there's interviews with him being like, I thought he thinks The Master is funny.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why?
Yeah.
But maybe he just has a really fucking weird sense of humor. But a part of me is like, he's married to Maya Rudolph. Like,
yeah,
I know he's funny. I just don't know that he knows what being funny is. I don't know. I wonder if he would just maybe get out of his head a little bit and not focus, but like put that energy into a comedy. I wonder what that would look like.
And that's the other thing that I would.
Do I need every movie to be like the Great American Novel?
No. And and I totally agree. And you know, one of the things we praised him about for Junoon was breaking that sort of that rigorous rigidness.
Yes.
And maybe if he did something more like that again, I would also be really interested in seeing that and seeing it not be as it's so formalistic and so just like if the lighting is here and the, you know,
not formalistic,
but formalistic. That's right. I'm going with it. Formulaic. Is that what you want out of me? Is that what you're looking for?
Well, you got there.
I speak English good. Thank you. And it's very late, guys. You know, not that there's an issue with his style of filmmaking, but maybe something a little more relaxed, like you just said.
To push himself a little bit.
So yeah, I think that really
wraps her up.
Yeah, that wraps up PTA. We're both excited for Licorice Pizza. We wish the name was different, but sorry, it's a dumb name.
It's a dumb name.
But yeah, but very excited and genuinely hope he continues to make a shit ton more movies.
I'm excited.
Please don't do like another 4 or 5 year gap. I know he probably needs that first process, but like. Do the Master Inherent Vice speed. It's better for you.
But not those movies. Thanks. Thanks.
Rude.
Sincerely me.
But if you want to contact us, you can always find us online on Twitter at The Mixed Reviews.
We're also on Facebook. Just type in The Mixed Reviews.
If you want to email us, you can email us at reviewsmixed@gmail.com.
We're also on Instagram. We're at _mixed_reviews.
And if you want to listen to us like you've been listening to this entire episode, you can find us on a plethora of podcast apps. We're on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, Amazon, Audible. And if you do listen to us on Apple Podcasts or Audible, please stop by, leave us a 5-star rating, and write us a little review, and we'll read it on the show like we've done with so many others.
Yes. If you believe in the cause, please contact us. We hope you guys have a great holiday season. Keep an eye out for some fun merch things, and we will see you in 2022.
It's gonna be a new year, baby.
Bye, guys.
Bye.